The CBC Headline News, brought to you by Digicel, Barbados' fastest 4G network.
Correspondent banking issues could have implications for Barbados. Police are reporting a decrease in crime. And in sports, the Tridents are off the mark in the 2016 CPL.
The CBC Headline News, brought to you by Digicel, Barbados' fastest 4G network.
Credible, balanced, committed. This is the CBC Evening News.
And a very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Lord with the CBC Evening News. And our top story tonight, there are implications for the island's international business and financial services sectors if the correspondent banking issue is not resolved very soon. This observation from Prime Minister Frundell Stewart on the final day of the 37th Heads of Government Conference in Guyana. He tells CBC News the implications are the same for many other CARICOM countries, and as a result, there is a massive effort to secure a reversal of the international bank's decision to cut off relationships with institutions across the region.
To our people, looking at ways and means in which we can make our advocacy effective in Washington in particular. We talked about lobbying and that kind of thing. The former Attorney General of the United States, Mr. Eric Holder, has been talking to our people here in CARICOM with a view to seeing how best he can assist in our efforts to, as it were, wrestle this challenge to the ground.
Now, on the issue of trade within the region, Mr. Stewart says while Barbados has a vibrant relationship, there is always room for improvement.
We will look for additional opportunities to expand that trade. And of course, we believe in fair trade, so in the same way that our goods are finding access in other CARICOM markets, we will make ourselves willing, make ourselves able to receive goods from CARICOM markets as well.
Well, proceedings at the CARICOM Summit in Guyana are wrapping up, and we join Lisa Broom live now for an update. Good evening, Lisa.
Good evening, Lisa. As you said, the 37th Heads of Government Conference is in its final stages. Leaders from the 15-member grouping, they're actually holding now their last plenary session. We're waiting that to be wrapped up so that we can have the traditional wrap-up press conference as customary. And we are also awaiting an official communique, which in a sense puts a bow on the 3 days of meetings. Today, the heads were taken up with issues surrounding CLICO and BICO, the treatment of Haitian-born people in the Dominican Republic, and cricket, among other issues. And today as well, Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, reporting that yesterday significant progress was made on the issue of free movement across the region. So that, in a nutshell, is it for the 37th Heads of Government Conference here in Georgetown, Guyana. As I said, we're awaiting the final press conference where we will hear the definitive outcomes of the conference. Lisa, back to you.
Thank you very much, Lisa. While the unemployment figures are down, the new rate is now 9.3%. CBC's Tristan Ward has those details.
On the heels of the Prime Minister's announcement, the Barbados Statistical Service has released the most recent data on employment in the country. For the first quarter, January to March 2016, unemployment stood at 9.3%, and the figures are showing a downward trend. New jobs came in the area of the wholesale, retail, accommodation, hotel, and restaurant sectors. Construction is also picking up with projects like the Sandals Extension and work on the new Wyndham Hotel at the former Sam Lord's site. CBC News spoke with a number of Barbadians to see how they feel about the just released figure.
Well, that's an improvement, you know. Every step along the way, once it's a positive step, no matter if it's an inch or a meter, it's a positive step. So I believe that's a good thing, and the more people we have employed, the better.
But I don't know if it's something that we should celebrate, or jump and say, I think it's just wait and see. Because we probably now have to see how many of those persons now are employed or how long these persons were employed for.
I think we need to go back to the drawing board and maybe get it down even lower.
We still have a long way to go in terms of bringing the economy up and getting people employed.
I think it's a good sign. It shows that the government is doing something about the high unemployment rate in Barbados. It's hope for the people. People will get more jobs now, and hopefully it continues to decrease.
Tristan Ward, CBC News.
And joining us live now is Minister of Labour, Senator Dr. Esther Bayasuku. Senator, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Good evening.
Good evening. Could you tell us some of the areas that have been driving the employment figures?
Yes, from the statistics, what we're seeing is that the major improvement has been in wholesale and retail sales, but we're also seeing, of course, in accommodation and restaurants, basically your tourism services. And then we're seeing some improvement also in the construction area. None of which is surprising. We expected to see in the first quarter of the year that we would have improvement in the tourism area. We did know from all accounts that we would have had a good tourism season based on the arrivals, based on the spend, but now we're seeing that reflected too in the employment.
And what are some of these strategies that government would have employed to reduce the unemployment
figure?
Oh,
well, there've been many. As you know, our unemployment rate did go quite high. It went to about 13% in 2014, and we've been gradually seeing that come down. This is not the first dip, so it actually is a trend downwards. The last quarter of last year also was that was 10%, and now we're seeing this come down to 9.3. So there's been a move down, but I think it's a number of factors that would have contributed to this decline in the unemployment. It goes right back to all the things that we've been doing about stabilizing our economy, about bringing growth. All of those things had something to do with it, about maintaining the parity of our dollar. Even the tough decisions that we had to make back in 2014, where we had to lay off people as well and make some folks redundant, all of that was a part of stabilizing our economy. It was a tough road that we had to walk, but now we're seeing that paid off, because in doing so we were able then to regain investor confidence, and as I said, we're seeing that growth coming back. We're seeing new projects, we're seeing investors coming, we're seeing new hotels, we're seeing some work starting, for example, as we've seen at the Marriott in the Wyndham at Sam Lords. So and there are a whole lot of other projects that are on train as well to begin, and that's just in tourism. So all of this comes because of the tough decisions that we took and because we stayed the course when it got really rough.
And more people are starting their own businesses?
Oh yes, that was also a part of it. You would see in our growth and development strategy, or medium-term strategy, that we focused also on entrepreneurship. And so there has been a lot of training, certainly in my ministry under the Human Resource Development Strategy. A lot of emphasis was placed on training for entrepreneurship. But in the private sector, we've had agencies also doing that kind of training. And we've had other agencies in the Ministry of Youth, across government and across the private sector. We have been focusing on entrepreneurship, and a number of people, especially young people, have gone that route, and so their figures also are reflected in this.
About 2 weeks ago, I remember you mentioning that a number of Barbadians are scared to take entrepreneurial risk and afraid to fail. Why is that?
Well, a number of things go in there. I think it's the way we've been socialized. You know, we're safe, we don't take those kinds of risks. If we start a project and we see that it's not working out, or we borrowed money for this project and it didn't work out, we're not going back for extra funding. In fact, our banks also and lending institutions, they have a role to play there as well, because the banks are not likely, it seems to me, to say, well, okay, you failed once, let me lend you money a second time. We're not telling the banks that you have to be, free with other people's money that they've put in the bank. But certainly we need our banks to encourage that kind of development, because that's what it is. When a business fails, your own business, when it fails, that's development. Don't see that as failure and stop doing this is not meant for you. Not at all. It just means try again.
Thank you very much, Senator Bayasuku. Of course, the Labour Minister was talking to us about the most recent unemployment figure, which now stands at 9.3%. Well, major security upgrades are in the works for the island's ports of entry. This revelation from Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism and International Business, Senator Irene Sandiford Garner. Speaking in the Upper House on the Civil Aviation Amendment Bill 2016, she says the enhanced security will come through an arrangement with the Transport Security Administration, or the TSA, in the USA. She adds that government is already looking at a memorandum of understanding with the TSA to make it happen.
Whenever the TSA upgrades the security screening equipment, they usually make the replaced equipment available for reuse elsewhere. And they have made an offer to lend Barbados some equipment. I will not say what type of screening equipment it is, which will upgrade our present measures. And the grant of this equipment requires us to sign an MOU with the TSA prior to the execution of the loan of the equipment.
Senator Sandiford Garner says government is examining the legal issues that could arise with the implementation. She says airport authorities are aware of the offer and are checking on what is required to maintain the equipment.
So that when it comes, we can maintain it and it will continue to work. So we are upgrading our security to a very sophisticated level in this country. So it now just means that we need the cooperation and compliance of those on the ground who will be charged with the responsibility of operating that equipment to ensure that our ports of entry remain safe and are as safe as we possibly can make them.
Well, Opposition Senator Jerome Walcott wants government to outline the measures it's taking to improve the classification of the Grantley Adams International Airport. He asked the question while noting that the airport's status, according to the International Civil Aviation Organization, is Category 2.
The most recent figures for 2015, I note Category 1 countries included in this region: Barbados, Cayman Islands, Jamaica, Antigua, Trinidad and Tobago. Barbados is stated as a Category 2 country. I understand the work that is being done, but I would like, in her wrap-up, if the Honourable Senator could perhaps give us some detail in terms of the efforts and what is being done in terms of increasing our category, moving our category to Category 1 status, so that we might then meet ICAO standards.
Well, there has been a 2% decrease in crime across Barbados. Acting Commissioner of Police Tyrone Griffith shared the facts this morning at the Barbados Police Association's annual general meeting. While there have been 9 murders for the year to date so far, he says this figure is lower than last year and also lower than other figures in other Caribbean countries.
Today, a small country like St. Kitts have some 16 murders already for the year, as compared to Barbados 9. I know we still cry out that 9 is a lot. In truth and fact, if you compare that with many other years, I don't think we have done much better than this for many years. As we have 9 murders now as compared with 13 last year.
The Acting Commissioner of Police also stresses the increase in drug-related crime is mainly due to police action where more people are brought to justice.
We have, to date, an increase of over 40% of drug cases, and that is very significant. So that in itself would have pushed the actual number of crime cases up.